Much of this course is meant to be fun and visually arresting, but I am an economist, and economics isn't called the dismal science for nothing. I feel that I am morally compelled to give you the basic concepts of urban economics, stripped of history and pictures, and with only a few graphs as visual aids. These videos are going to be shorter. They are the boring bits. If you think economics is a bore, you can skip them. But if you want to know how economists really approach cities, then these videos are for you. Any of you who have taken Economics 101 in either high school or college will have been exposed to supply and demand graphs. They are a fundamental tool, and we can use them to think about cities as well. Let's start with the demand for living and working in a particular metropolitan area. We'll call the region Gotham, for lack of any imagination, and we'll make our lives easier by assuming that every house in Gotham is the same, and everyone faces exactly the same commute. The simplest way to think about demand is to imagine that there are a couple of 100 million people who might potentially live in the city. Each person gets two benefits from being in Gotham: a wage and a flow of non-wage benefits, which we'll call amenities. Those amenities roll together all of the good and bad things related to living in the city: traffic congestion, cool restaurants, and personal things too, perhaps like proximity to a parent or a child. These wages and benefits all need to be measured relative to the next best place that the people could possibly live, say Metropolis. The sum of wages and benefits relative to Metropolis reflects the willingness of a person to pay to live in the city. That willingness to pay represents individual demand for Gotham. We then sort people on the basis of their willingness to pay and use bars to represent each person, from the highest demand to the lowest demand. So if the highest payer is willing to pay $1 million and the next payer is willing to pay $900,000 and so forth, we could get a series of bars that go downward. Now make the bars tinier and tinier because you've got so many people, and as they smoosh together, you end up getting a nice continuous demand curve. Maybe it's a straight line, or maybe it's a curve. We need technical assumptions to assure that this curve is continuous, that it doesn't jump, but I'm happy to make those assumptions. Normally, we'd have to join this curve with a supply curve, but we'll get to that later. For now, let's just assume that Gotham has a fixed number of homes for people, so the population is capped at, I don't know, 1 million. So then we can use this curve to figure out what housing prices are going to be. Find the spot on the curve that denotes the willingness to pay for the millionth person. Here it is. And that willingness to pay denotes the price of housing in the city. I'm being a little sloppy about dynamics here, since the price of housing could either be a home price or a rental price, but let's assume that everyone just moves once, lives forever, and their home lasts forever too. Then if this willingness to pay is the lifetime value of living in the city, then the demand curve tells us the price of a home in that city. We now have a demand curve and a pretty good guess about what would make it shift up or down. If wages in the city rise for everyone, then demand goes up. Since the number of homes is fixed, the population of the city won't rise. It would if there was a proper supply curve. But the price of housing in the city will rise, and it will rise exactly enough to offset the increase in incomes. Similarly, if the city becomes safer or more pleasant, the demand curve will also rise, and prices will rise in turn. If amenities or income in the city decline, then the demand curve shifts down, and the price of the city falls.